Well, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started with tonight's hearings. We have a custom of beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance, after which we will have a brief moment of silence for our active servicemen and women. So if you would please join me, I believe Eric's got a copy of or an image of the flag there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll begin tonight's public hearing with an application filed by Marcello and Stacy Battisti, the owners of property at 3542. Yep.
Do we have to do the organizational meeting at the beginning, or are we going to take care of that at the end?
I don't know that it needs to be done first. I was going to conduct the public hearings. It'll still be part of the open meeting rather than have people wait around for that.
As long as we don't miss it, that's cool.
Yeah, I've got that on my agenda.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so this is property at 3542 Sandy Beach Drive. They're seeking an area variance for a front setback of 36.16 feet when 55 feet is required. So the variance is for 18.84 feet. They're represented by Hanlon Architects.
Okay, Jay Harris Maxwell here with Hanlon Architects to discuss the project at 3542 Sandy Beach. And actually, we recently resubmitted a site plan back to Eric's office that updated the footprint and changed the variance request to 41.33 feet from the right-of-way. And the purpose of this is, you've seen this project before where we were trying to put a small addition onto this existing cottage that's here. And through the process of doing the work on this and working with Chris Jensen at the town, the elevation of the house needs to be at a certain elevation to meet FEMA standards. And what Marcello has found, the existing cottage was raised a couple of years ago. They actually lifted the house, put a new foundation underneath the house, and set the elevation at a new finished floor. Unfortunately, that finished floor does not meet to the FEMA standards today. So any addition work or any work that Marcello is looking to do would be considered a substantial improvement to this job and would require all finished floors being raised up approximately 9 inches to 10 inches higher than what the existing is. So Marcello had gone through and done some budgeting exercises to see what it would do to raise the existing cottage, or just to demo down to the top of the existing foundation and rebuild. And he found that it was actually going to be cheaper to rebuild the house altogether versus trying to renovate and put the addition on. With that in mind, what he was able to do is, if we're holding the southwest corner of the house and we're adding on, we have a new footprint that's 25.5 feet wide, the lakeside, by 64 feet deep. That keeps us within the lakeside setback, the north and south setbacks, and we were able to pull the road a bit further than the previous application you referenced. So footprint, and Marcello's been really working hard and finding these roadblocks with them every kind of step of the way, these little hurdles that we've been trying to achieve, and it looks like this one seems the best approach that we could get for what he's looking to do for the project, as well as minimize anything with the variance of requests that we have. Right now, where the face of the house is, the previous project, if you
You're kind of
because we're actually bettering that half feet. A line if you connect, pardon me, print. We've been able to better the lot coverage. Currently, we're down one. This has bettered the project. And has seemed to respectful variances we're asking for.
All right, let's open it up to the board. We have looked at this property in the past, as we all know. And like was just stated, the lot coverage is not being expanded, it's being reduced. The only variance request we have is for the front setback. And just to clarify, Eric, our notice is 36.16 feet, but there was a change, correct? And the zoning law determination now is 41.33 would be the setback?
Yeah, let me just confirm that number. But yep, 41.33 proposed.
So because the setback that was noticed was a greater variance than what's now being requested, our notice is okay because it was a reduction.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay.
However, let me just ask this, the county planning board still references a lot coverage variance, saying it's increasing from 34 to 38. Is that accurate?
No, that was a prior version of the plan, if I'm correct, Eric. The current version is going from existing non-conforming lot coverage of 33.9% to a proposed lot coverage of 32.9%.
I can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I had my phone muted. Their most recent comments from January 11 note it as a 33.4 lot coverage, which would be accurate to what the plan was provided back in December. It might be their older comments from November that note the 38% lot coverage. So they did revise their comments based on a change in plans in December and a re-report them.
Good.
And they didn't have any recommendation. Terrence, you're muted. Terrence, you're muted.
Chris, I want to clarify that with you just quickly. Obviously, there's a legal requirement that we submit this to county planning. The plan was revised, though, based upon what they've seen. Is it your interpretation that that would require it to be sent back to them, or can we go forward with the plan as proposed, which is slightly different than what they saw?
Despite the fact that it's different than what they saw, I think we're good because it no longer requires that variance, which means that it wouldn't have been referred to them for that issue to begin with. I think we're good going forward.
Okay, I agree. I just wanted to get that, from you on the record. So we'll go back to questions from the board. Once again, we have a single variance. It's a front setback. The requirement's 55 feet. The applicant's looking for 41.33.
It seems that I recall from our previous discussion that neighboring homes had, were all under the heading of pre-existing nonconformities. And what was being asked for was not hugely out of line with the rest of the neighborhood. That's the way my memory serves me. Anybody want to help me with that?
No, I agree with that, Bob. Certainly, this is a unique neighborhood with small lots. The setbacks, are pretty much in line with what's being proposed. It just requires a variance, even though it's a non-conforming structure. You are expanding the level of non-conformity because the proposed addition will come closer to the road than the current structure.
Right.
Eric's giving you some estimates there. So this house, even with the addition, will be at 41.33, 41 and a third, which will put it further back than most of the homes immediately in its vicinity. Any other questions from the board before I go to the audience on this application? Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from anyone in the audience? And just as a reminder, our pattern and practice is that if you would just state your name and address and then give your comment and direct your comments to the board. All right, hearing no comment or question on this application, I'll go back to the board one final time before we ask the applicant if they're comfortable closing the application. Any final comments from the board? All right. Now for all of our hearings tonight, when I ask the applicant if they're comfortable closing the hearing, what that means is that the public hearing portion of the application will be closed. The board doesn't receive any additional information during the public hearing. We have 62 days to render our decision, and our deliberations are conducted the evening we hear applications. So is the applicant comfortable with that explanation, closing their public hearing?
He might have frozen or gotten dropped off. Maybe we could move on to the next application until he can join.
I'm sorry, they
us.
were on Zoom. So, yeah.
I couldn't make out that comment. Can you give that once again?
I'm not sure if there was a comment directed to me because I got caught out. I heard you making a comment, Terrence, and I wasn't sure what that was. I think you had some comments from the last comments from the board, or if there was something that I was supposed to hear last.
Yeah,
I
so
know
the question I pose is there were no direct comments or questions from the board or from anyone in the audience. I was asking if the applicant is comfortable closing their application.
Yes, we are. And again, we just wanted to recognize with what we've done before. As you can see, Eric has done some Bob had asked for about before when we had the issue with lot coverages. We went and did that exercise. But with this new plan, that kind of relegates that as a non-issue because we're not asking for lot coverage anymore. So our due diligence to work favorably for Marcello cost-wise and what he's trying to do with the existing house. So I think we're good with forward.
All right, well, we will close the application then, and we'll move on to our next public hearing. This is for property at 4847 County Road 16. The applicants are Daniel and Rena Chesson. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. They're being represented by Jack Seacrest. The request is for an area variance for a rear setback to the lake of 50.67 feet when 60 feet is what is required. So the resulting variance would be for 9.33 feet. Jack, I see you there. Are you going to talk to this application?
I guess so.
All right, go ahead.
We're looking for the lakeside variance. The deck is right now, I think it's a 40-foot wide deck on a 200-foot piece of property. The house was designed as what I call an upside down house, where the bedrooms are downstairs and the living space is upstairs. If you've been to the site, it is very steep. So we took advantage of that and we just put the living space on the second floor, which is where the kitchen and the family room is and the deck. And we want to place the screen porch in that location so it's easily accessible from the kitchen. and from the family room just to be able to use the space. I would say that we're quite a bit, I can't tell what the elevation is from the road, but you'll never see the screen porch addition from County Road 16. I think it's heavily wooded. And so I'm not too uncomfortable with the addition. Also, as we did some research up and down County Road 16, we found several houses that actually had variances much closer than ours. I'll be happy to go through those if you want, or we can talk about, or I think I have 8 or 10 properties, 4 or 5, either north or south of the property. Anything else you need to know from me?
I don't have any direct questions for you, Jack, but I'll open it to the board to see if they have any questions on this application. Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the audience on this application. Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? All right, hearing none, we'll come back to the board one final time. Any questions or comments from anyone on the board? Once again, this is a proposed deck. Required setback is 60 feet. The proposal would be that the deck would be at 50.67 feet. All right, hearing no questions or comments from the board. Jack, you comfortable closing?
Ma'am,
All right.
are you?
Are you asking me or your clients? It doesn't matter if I'm comfortable.
No, I'll ask my client. I won't put you in the middle of it.
Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. They're muted, but I'll assume the thumbs up means you're comfortable closing. If not, wave your hands at me. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm comfortable closing.
We'll close then. All right, very good. Our next application is for property located at
Thank you.
4864 Bedford Drive. Property is owned by Matt Schwalm and Kylie Dunster. They're seeking an area variance for a side setback of 15 feet when 25 feet is the required setback. The resulting variance is a 10-foot variance. All right, who will be speaking to this application?
Matt, I think you're muted.
Hey everybody, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So yes, I'll be representing myself. And between our property, 4864 and 486, to have the very 15 feet for a variance of 15 feet for us to a garage, but to stay with the aesthetics of the neighborhood, we like to do a well-built addition. So something to include in the application, the rendering of what we're proposing. And I did find it helpful. Is there a way I can share my screen, Eric?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah. Let's see if I-
Try it now, Matt.
Get to the- Let's see if I can do this right here. So I just wanted to give you all a image of something that would look nice in a extra garage in the neighborhood. So that would be the front. Obviously, the conditions of the exterior aren't what they're going to be. But building a conditioned breezeway from the back of the house to the 20 by 40 addition. If I could do it correctly here. So I apologize, it's not, a polished architectural drawing, but just to give you all a picture of what we were hoping. So the variance request is to go 10 feet closer than what we were allowed. When the neighborhood was first started, it was a 15-foot variance. So you'll even see that our neighbor to the left is certainly within that 15-foot variance. Then over the years, it changed to 25 feet. So we were just applying to keep that 15 feet. I did speak with both of our neighbors. The one that the addition is going to be close to, unfortunately, was dealing with a death in the family. And when I spoke to him, he just said it was, too much to talk about right now. So I didn't press the issue to sign a letter of affirmation. But our neighbor to the right was certainly understanding and actually very energetic about it, knowing that she had kids in the past and that they need some extra space to run play, as a lot of places are closed now. I did explain to our neighbor to the left that it would be, we were able to build a garage, but they were looking to build an addition that wouldn't detract from his property.
So, if I can, part of the reason you are proposing it as an addition as opposed to a garage is because it'll have like habitable space in it.
Correct, yes. And to the board, I'm not sure if you all need to hear this, but working with Eric and Chris through this whole process, I mean, they are an unbelievable resource. So thank you guys.
Happy to help you with the process.
All right, well, let's open it to the board for questions here for Mr. Schwalm on this project.
Can we see the overlay of the lot again?
This one you're looking for?
Right.
What's the allowable lot coverage, Eric?
Well, no lot coverage, but building coverage is, hold on, let me pull it up.
Sorry, I jumped in on your question, Dave. I've cut you off.
No, I was just trying to figure out if there's any other way that they could do this without, without the variance. Typical.
20% allowable for building coverage.
And this isn't going to put it over 20%? It looks pretty significant just looking at it.
13.9.
Show me that lot again.
Where is it? This one.
Wow, my eyes are playing tricks on me. If if you said 13.9% coverage.
Yeah.
Again, real
Wow.
quick, if you want. All right, so I just added up the attached garage, the first story area, the 20 by 40 and 6 by 6, which is all the buildings on here. Might be a deck there too, actually. But that came out to 12.4%.
So that's building coverage. What about lot coverage, which would include the
There's
pool?
no lot coverage in this district.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Just seeing from looking at it that it was a pretty intensive use of that size of the lot, but that's why we get the numbers.
Yep.
All right, Dave, keep going with your line of questioning though, Dave.
Well, I'm just wondering, they bumped that thing out to, for the need for this variance. I'm just wondering if there's any other way to achieve it. That's where I typically am on these side setbacks.
So Matt, could you build this while maintaining the 25-foot setback or more in conformance to that?
Not to the scope this is. I think when you and I met in your office, there was a small space that I could build it close to the pool.
Right, essentially moving it over this way.
Yeah, exactly. But in hopes of maintaining some play area for the kids between the addition and the pool, and then in behind, we just wanted a little runway for them to run, that we would be able to see them without playing behind the addition. But I think the allowable in that little space was half the size.
Well, what was the allowable between the pool and what you have there at that gap now?
What do you mean by that, Dave?
Well, I'm just saying that you've got we see a pretty big area between the pool and the addition. What's that distance?
I think it was 17 feet.
So that's the approximate area. So 50 minus 15, but you get 35 minus 20, so it'll be around 15 feet between the pool patio and the addition, approximately.
Yeah.
Well, the typical obvious question for me, is there any way that you can move it over 10 feet? And that's the question to me. Is there any reason you can't move it over 10 feet, avoid the variance, and we move on?
Eric, I thought when I was in your office, there was another map that showed a smaller line
Small.
or a smaller available section that was closer to the pool.
Was that when we were talking about it as a detached building? I'll try to.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. Because there was another map for detached.
It wasn't this one. That?
Yeah, that's what it was.
So this must be with all the setback requirements. I think Chris might have drawn this one, but if the allowable building space or building envelope is essentially that red area.
So you're saying there's a 40-foot setback to the rear that he has to maintain?
Let's just check to be sure.
And go back to our site plan. So he's got that. What's the distance between the rear of this structure to the rear property line?
Yeah, I used a different drawing on it. Oh, you're right. Yeah, it doesn't meet that setback requirement. That would need a variance too.
But do we know what it is just for, my education? Oh, it's right there. You're saying it's 30 and it needs to be
Yeah.
40? Okay.
So I could move it up 10 feet. So it would cover a bit of the driveway turnaround. Yeah, right where your cursor is. To maintain that 40.
It might, we would have to look at it. It might still need a variance if it only moved up, just based on the sketch, 3.5 feet. So we would have to look at it.
Okay. Or I shorten the building.
Right, yeah, restricting building.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Matt, where we stand right now is there are certain procedural requirements that we have to comply with as a board. One of those is that we can't approve variances that haven't been subject to a public notice. So your project right now needs a rear variance, and we haven't advertised that in the public notice. So we cannot vote tonight on your project as proposed. I think it's something you've got to think about what you want to present as your project. Knowing that the current proposal requires 2 variances, a side setback and a rear setback variance. You could go forward with that if that's what you decide you want to do, but we would have to delay 1 month, publish a notice so that we're legally compliant, publishing the rear setback. Or you modify your project to negate the need for one or both variances. That's also an option. But, you know, we have a condition, a standard condition that we use where we grant variances conditioned upon the project that's presented. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but this project doesn't have a full site plan, which isn't required, but is generally something we see on most projects. I personally would feel uncomfortable going forward without seeing a revised plan, even if it's not a full site plan, but at least a revised plan that you've given, so much what you've given us today that demonstrates what variances are being asked, rather than just a statement, you know, that it could be moved or it would be moved to be code compliant. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's where I'm at on this one.
I feel the same.
Can I request that if the site plan is resubmitted, that the actual setbacks be delineated? You know, if there's a rear setback, an arrow from the back of the building to the rear line saying this is going to be 30 feet, side setback going to be this. That way, you know, variances are forever on a property. So if, you know, 15 years from now, a building inspector needs to say, okay, it can be this far, I'd like to have something with a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, give us some input here. Before Mr. Swan would be able to get a building permit, there would need to be a site plan, correct?
No, probably not. He would have to provide, since this is over $20,000, architecturally stamped plans or engineered stamped plans, which is a New York State code, but I don't think he would have to provide like engineered plans showing it on the site.
Okay. Because I think that's what Chris Nadler is suggesting, right, Chris?
Well, I'm not suggesting a full site plan. I'm just saying if you want to submit something like this, I'd like, you know, a little bit more detail just in terms of, you know, what the setbacks would be. I mean, I guess it's adequate, but I would just be nervous. I mean, there's no rear distance. The rear distance, I think, would be different at different locations. Maybe that's squared off, but I can't really tell.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. I don't think it is squared off just based upon the rear line of the house versus that rear line of the lot, but your point is well taken. That's why we need those distances.
One other thing that should be addressed if there's still going to be a 15-foot setback line, I would think drainage. Since this would, Eric, this would not go to site plan.
No, it doesn't require site plan approval.
So the zoning board, since it would be so close to the line, I think would probably want to take an interest in drainage issues.
That was the first thing we discussed with our builder.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got a plan for it. I'm sure it would be adequate, but I know that the zoning board would probably want to make sure that if you were going to be closer to the lot line than allowed by the code, that the zoning board was taking steps to make sure that it wasn't dumping water, you know, running water next door. And right now, there's nothing to show that. So your builder would probably have some information about that.
Yeah.
I would second what's been said. For me to work through this, I'm feeling that you have an interesting concept, but I don't see a plan that helps me totally understand the dimensions. And that's what was previously said. It's the concept is interesting, but I don't see it. It's different than other things that we've reviewed, in my opinion, and it lacks the specificity that I'm used to seeing.
Matt, are you working with a builder who might be able to draw up a kind of plan of how it sits on the lot? Or maybe you could?
Yeah,
Um,
we just didn't want to go too far down
right,
without understanding, yeah, what was
So
possible.
Matt, if I can give you a little bit of direction here. So we're going to need to kick this out a month at a minimum, even if you want to keep the current footprint and renotice it. So I think it would be good for you and your builder to get with the development office in terms of what your final proposal is. If you're going to ask for the 2 variances, they need to know that so they can publish the notice for that. If it's going to be a modified project that requires 1 variance, that's fine, let them know that. Or if there's a way you can do it with no variances, that would be best. Because one of the factors that we do consider is whether the project can be completed without the need for a variance. And I know that's something that we generally like to focus on. And there does seem to be maybe some potential to do that. So just letting you know, those are some things to consider. But either way, we're going to have to adjourn this public hearing for failure on the legal notice. We don't have a properly noticed public hearing. All right.
One other thing, can, from the development office, make sure that the applicant gets a copy of the neighbor letter dated January 12, 2021. It sounded like he didn't have that.
I do not have that.
yeah, it looks like we just got it at the end of last week.
Yeah.
I think it was the 12th, but
Can I see a copy of it?
sure.
Yeah, it's from the property at 4866, expressing some pretty substantive concerns with the project.
Yeah, we had just gotten it on Friday, it looks like, but, so, from Steve and Karen Taft. But I'll email it to you, Matt.
All right.
Okay, we will adjourn this public hearing and we'll now go into our deliberations, calling the applications in the order in which they were heard. So we'll begin with 3542 Sandy Beach Drive. This is the Battisti property. I'll just go ahead and start off on this one. I think that in the end, this project has gotten to a place that I am much more comfortable with. The setback is the only variance required anymore. I like it that we're not expanding the pre-existing nonconformity in terms of lot coverage, and the 41.33 foot rear setback. Right, technically this is a front setback, right, Eric? The front is to the road.
Right.
Yeah. I think is well within the character of the neighborhood. There are many that are significantly shorter, so I don't really have an issue with this project as presently constituted. Any other thoughts?
I commend the applicant for making a modification, coming back, being patient and resolute, and I feel very comfortable with the current application.
Okay, Dave, Kelly, you both comfortable voting if we call a vote?
I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with this. I just have a question. We got into this before on the lot coverage, and the big issue was that they hadn't done due diligence here to try to figure out what the neighboring properties were as far as lot coverage. And I got thinking about this, and it's awfully nice to just wave the magic hand and ask Eric, who can do this immediately. And I'm just trying to say, if I was an applicant and I wanted to find out the lot coverages for the neighboring 15 or 20 properties, how would I do such a thing?
Not asking Eric.
Not asking Eric. And that's great. But
So what I recommended to people was to first use Encore to identify properties that they felt were above the lot coverage requirement, and then to make specific requests of the town clerk, FOIL requests for any lot coverage variances that had been granted there. If they were granted by the zoning board, great, you would have them, you can use them as precedent. If they weren't, they might be pre-existing nonconformities, and then to request site plans for them. The site plan might still provide an indication of how much lot coverage is there in pre-existing nonconforming. If there was no site plan, if there was no variances, just using Encore to get a rough calculation of what it is. And actually, J. Harris Maxwell did provide lot coverage rough lot coverage calculations for this application. But we didn't have to look at it because it wasn't necessary.
Well, I understand that. It was necessary when they brought it up before, but there was, like I said, Eric, you do a great job, and I'm just saying you're a great resource, but not everybody has that. And I just thought, well, maybe you should branch out.
Eric, is that yours or that was done by somebody else, right? That screen that we're
Yeah.
looking at?
Looks like Marcello put
Yes,
that
and
together.
they actually did it, David. So that's why I thought, I know we talked about it at the last meeting, and I actually have a sheet with some old numbers that are from some of those neighborhoods that I'll get over to you guys, but I found it when I was cleaning my desk out and stuff, so, yeah.
All right, Eric, why don't we call a vote on this application?
Okay. All right. So Hanlon Architects for Marcello Battisti at 3542 Sandy Beach Drive. The applicant is requesting the area variance for 41.33 feet. Requesting a front setback when 55 feet is minimum. Shall the applicant be granted a 13.67 front setback area variance? Bob?
Yes.
Dave?
On mute.
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
And Terrence?
Yes. All right, the board's decision is based on the descriptions and drawings provided at the public hearing and on the additional dates that Eric will fill in based upon the submissions. And the board has determined that the benefit to the applicant does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or community, and therefore the variance is granted. Specifically, the board makes the following findings of fact. This variance will not change the character of the neighborhood, as there are other properties with similar or more severe setbacks. The 41.33 setback will be one of the larger setbacks in the neighborhood. This is a unique neighborhood that is dominated by small lots with higher lot coverages. The board has reviewed the fact that the project will not require any further expansion in the existing lot coverage and will actually result in a reduction in lot coverage. And the board imposes two conditions on this project. The first is that the variance that is granted specific to the most recent plan submitted to the ZBA, and any change in that plan shall invalidate the variance. And the second condition is that the variance is conditioned on building permits being issued within 1 year of the date the variance is granted, and failure to obtain building permits within 1 year shall invalidate the variance. Anything else that anyone would like to add to that decision? Nope. Okay. Next is the public hearing for 4847 County Road 16. I drove by this lot. I didn't go down to the house, but just from the road, it's got a lot of tree coverage. I agree that I don't think you're ever going to see this from the road and from the lakeside. I don't think that the 9 feet movement closer to the lake is going to be significant or impair any view sheds. You're still going to have, 50 feet and change. I think it's a pretty significant setback. So I didn't have a problem with it, but I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts they'd like to share. No?
I don't think it'll be a major issue from either the lake, certainly not from the road, but either from the lake either.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a big lot. It's not a massive variance. I agree with Terrence.
Going back to our training, it was not substantial what they were asking for, correct?
Yep.
Right.
All right, Eric, why don't you go ahead and call this one then?
All right, Jack Segrist for Daniel and Rita Chesson, 4847 County Road 16. The applicant is requesting an area variance for 50.67 foot rear setback when 60 foot is the minimum. Shall the applicant be granted a 9.33 foot rear lake setback area variance? Bob?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
And Terrence?
Yes. So the board's decision is based on the descriptions and drawings provided at the public hearing and on the dates that Eric will fill in, that those submissions to the development office. The board has determined that the benefit to the applicant does outweigh any detriment to the neighborhood or community, and therefore the variance is granted. The board has made additional specific findings of fact. The board has found that the variance is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. The lot is a large lot. The proposed structure is relatively small, minimal in comparison to the lot. The variance request is not substantial. It's only a 9.33 foot variance and will still maintain a 50.67 foot setback to the lake. The board has also determined that this will not have any significant physical or environmental impact on the property or on the neighborhood. And the board is imposing two conditions, which is our standard two conditions, Eric. Variance is specific to the most recent plan submitted, and any change in the plan will invalidate the variance. And number two, the variance is conditioned on building permits being issued within 1 year of the date the variance is granted, and failure to obtain the building permit within 1 year shall invalidate the variance. All right, at this time, we will go into our board business, and the first item that we will address is our organizational procedures for the year. We need to adopt rules of procedure. We have rules that we have used in the past. And Eric, I think you might have those accessible to put up.
Yep.
Okay. So do we have any discussion about our rules of procedure? Anything that anyone would like to address? Or change?
I'm good.
All right, so want to make sure, Eric, do we need to in this meeting vote on a
Vice Chair?
vice chair? I was trying to think of the title there. Every year?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I make a motion that Chip be appointed to be the vice chair.
Second.
Have a second.
You're stuck.
I will accept that.
All right, who's going to second the motion, if anyone, and then we vote Chip in?
I think that was a unanimous second.
I think everybody,
Second, Kelly, thumbs up.
yep,
Okay. So all in favor, aye?
aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, that motion passes. Other items. Eric, do we have any requests for rehearing?
No.
You said yes?
No.
Oh, no, okay. We have an ordinance committee referral, looks like blank there, so it doesn't look like anything there.
Did you guys officially approve the rules of procedure or just the,
Oh, I guess we do need to do that official vote. I'll make a motion that we adopt the proposed 2021 rules of procedure for the zoning board of appeals, which are a replica of the 2020 rules of procedure without change or alteration.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No nays. Okay. I'll also make a motion while we're on business to approve our December 15 meeting minutes.
So move. Second
Okay.
or second.
From Chip. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? None. Okay. Eric, do you want to give us the preview for next month?
sure, pending any changes to the application tonight, obviously that one will be continued to that meeting on Bedford Drive. And then there's only one other new application, which is on McIntyre Road, just off County Road 30. That is for a height variance of a detached garage.
How severe are we talking? What are they asking for?
28 approximately feet when 22 is allowed.
Okay. I'm sure we've had those in the past. I don't remember one off the top of my head. Do you have any insight, Eric, what we've done in the past?
The only height variance for an accessory building I can think of is the one on Butler Road, right at the corner, or actually it's on Middle Cheshire, at the corner of Butler Road or intersection of Butler Road, that they were denied a height variance. I'm not sure what they were asking for, and then they built like a really flat roof structure. But that's the only one I can think of. Not in my 4.5 years here, though. I don't think there's been one for an accessory building.
What residential district is it?
This will be the AR2.
That's pretty rural out there.
Yep,
Yeah.
2 acre minimums. This one is in a block of like 6 acre lots, essentially.
Mhm.
What's the specific address, Eric? I'm just looking on my map.
2397 McIntyre Road.
Oh, so that's the one right out there by the corner.
Eric, remember the one that they built it without any principal structure, and they were using it Airbnb once they built the principal structure. Wasn't that a height variance that the zoning board did grant?
It was actually a side variance, and
It wasn't
the zoning board
height?
didn't grant it. And so then they came before the planning board to build a new home on that lot, actually.
Okay. Just checking.
Eric, did we, this is John Casey, did I not have,
Oh, I'm sorry.
stamp
Yeah.
drawing?
John, thank you for your correction. Yes. John has an application before us as well. Sorry, I can't recall the specific variance request for it.
John will probably recall. What are you looking for, John?
I'm not absolutely certain, but I think we're gonna have a setback variance for some proposed pavers and a lift that I would like to install on my lakefront property.
Any swimming pool?
And no swimming pools.
There's a front setback request to the right of way, a rear setback request for like a patio area. There's no variance request related to the lift. So you should get a determination soon if you haven't already.
I have not seen it, so, okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll have McIntyre Road, we'll have John's property on Westlake Road. Anything else, Eric? And then maybe this continued public hearing for Schwalm.
Yeah. I believe that's it.
Okay, all right. Well, it is 7 o'clock on the dot. I'll make a motion that we adjourn unless anyone else has anything they'd like to discuss first.
Oh, if I didn't mention it before, today is probably my last meeting with the zoning board. I'll be staying on with the town part-time moving forward, but I accepted a position to be the director of planning for the city of Niagara Falls. So I'll start there at the beginning of February.
Wow. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Love you too.
Nice.
Niagara Falls gain is our loss, Eric.
Yeah, we know his cell phone, right? Do we know?
You can Zoom meeting all the time.
Yeah.
Are Niagara Falls meetings on Tuesday nights?
I'm actually not sure of the schedule, and I'm sure I'll get roped in at some point.
We'll be sure to call your boss and make sure you're available.
But it's been a pleasure working with you guys. It really has.
Absolutely.
We feel the same.
And
Maybe
for
I
us.
should-
For Eric.
Thank you, guys.
All right, well, on that sad note, do we have a second on the motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Hi.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Have a
thank
good
you.
night.
Have a good night.
Night.
Good to
Take care.
everybody.